mind should not control him. One who controls the mind, and therefore the senses as well, is called Goswami or Swami. And one who is controlled by the mind is called Godasa, or the servant of the senses. A Goswami knows the standard of sense happiness. In transcendental sense happiness, the senses are engaged in the service of Rishikesh, for the supreme owner of the senses, Krishna. Serving Krishna with purified senses is called Krishna consciousness. Serving Krishna with purified senses is called Krishna consciousness. That is the way of bringing the senses under full control. What is more, that is the highest perfection of yoga practice. So here we are in essence hearing conclusion of the whole yoga process. Bringing senses under the control, using it for pleasure of Krishna. This is what the whole spiritual life is about. So we'll offer the prayers and then I'll just share some of the realizations I had in this regard. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalaka Chakshunmritam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Long or short one? Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Dashtaya Tadeshima Tavaitiranda Swami Nityananda Namaste Saraswati Devi Namaste Chaitanya Vishishna Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Gaura Bhakta Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. What can be done? You were outnumbered. Okay, so what I was thinking to do today, at least to some extent, and it's very interesting that it's just supported pretty much with whatever we have presented here in Srimad Bhagavad Gita. It's going to be discussion on mind, which we know the mind is what is the most pivotal sense of all the senses. Everything revolves around the mind. Whatever is your state of mind, that's what we're going to experience. Whatever is our state of mind, that's what we're going to be going through. That's how we are going to be acting. Pretty much everything revolves around the mind. And this is why the mind is the most important, at least initially, subject of any spiritual practice. What to do with the mind. How to control the mind. Because here, in the purport also, Srila Prabhupada said, talks about Swami, Goswami, servant or master of the senses. Of course, mostly we are servants of the senses. But if we manage to control the mind, we're going to become masters of the senses. And throughout the life, or let's say better, spiritual practice that we go through within our life, we can see how that remains a big challenge. It's not just a challenge in the beginning, it remains a challenge. It's not easy. It was like just a few days ago, I've been going through some challenging circumstances in relationship to mind. I'm going to share something about it. But before I do that, I'll just create some kind of foundation for it, explaining what mostly I've been going through last, let's say, 2 months, which is not some major novelty because that's something I face every time I go, let's say, home, better to say, rather than just west. It's just pretty much similar things, but it's interesting how there's always a new flavor of it, and nothing is ever again same. And there is, as I said, it's always a challenge because material energy has all kinds of arsenals on display. What does that mean? Material energy's purpose is what? It's to keep us in illusion, right? material energy has all kinds of tricks and tips and options to try to somehow bewilder, distract us from devotional practice. And it's just always the case. It doesn't stop. Pretty much it doesn't stop until you come to the level of, what is the level of spiritual practice when basically we are not anymore tempted by anything material? Anybody knows? What is the level? Samadhi? Okay. So which level is that in terms of more devotional practice? Sthita pragya, okay, that's fine. Anybody else? No? Yoga, Ruda? No. No, that's not what I... Yeah, okay, Goswami. No, that's okay, but what is Anandamaya? What is in nectar devotion? Okay, let's put it this way. That's more clear. In nectar of devotion, what are the stages? What are the bhakti stages? Clear bhakti stages. What? Something what? Nishta. Yeah, so prema bhakti practically. But prema bhakti means you don't have this body. So as long as we have this body, we can't reach prema bhakti actually. You can't have prema in this body because our body cannot handle that emotion, that realization, that state. Body falls apart. We hear the stories from Chaitanya Charitamrita how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu exhibited his prema emotional states, and his body was stretching, contracting. He was bruising his body, practically just doing so many things that it's impossible to do. Because if you do it in many ways, you would have leave the body. You can't handle that kind of state. Both subtle and gross. Body cannot handle that kind of madness, spiritual madness. Spiritual madness of love of Krishna. So that's prema. So before prema, then we struggle mostly with the mind. That goes up till nishta. Of course, there are 9 stages, just to make clear maybe for some of you who don't know. There are 9 stages, and nishta is about somewhere in the middle. So till about coming to that middle stage, we still very much struggle with the mind. And not just with the mind, we struggle with gross senses. We struggle in terms of seeing so many objects of attraction and distraction. Seeing, smelling, tasting, touching, so many things that distract us from Krishna. And then mind also supporting all of this. But even later on, when one becomes, after anartha nivritti, let's say one becomes somewhat purified, there is still a lot of impressions that remains in the mind. And then mind also troubles in a very subtle, refined way. So pretty much the whole devotional practice is a challenging practice up to that perfectional level. Because the challenges also then start to become not just so gross, they start becoming more refined, more subtle, and you might not perceive them even. You might not even perceive them. You may not even know about them until you're, finally kind of smashed and crashed and pressed heavily, and you start realizing, whoa, I maybe already lost Krishna consciousness, so to speak of realizing that you're losing it. Just now I was pretty much at the same time now, but yesterday I was in it's one of the larger airports in the world. Anyway, it's in Turkey, Istanbul. I had to spend there 8 hours waiting for a flight for India. So it's quite fun. Sitting there, just wasting time. I was hearing lectures. And then of course, then you see some Ajamil stories. Everybody knows Ajamil story? Who doesn't know? Raise your hand. Everybody knows about Ajamil. What happened to Ajamil? Really? Everybody knows? You don't know? Yeah, okay. So you just raise your hand. Otherwise, Oh, Ajamil was a very advanced Brahmana, but he witnessed very inappropriate sight of one, how would we say, Shudrani, it would be, well, almost like a prostitute, publicly, anyway, whatever. Spending time with some men, So that's nowadays a common thing. Publicly, you can, so many things can go on. And what to do. So that's also one of the distractions that mind may become exposed towards. And if you're like a Jamil, then you will start contemplating, and then you will start becoming attracted, and then you will start desiring the same thing and whatever. So that's what mind does. As I said, if it's not controlled, if it's not fixed on Krishna, if it's not, then mind will become very, very easily distracted like this. So this whole material setup, well, even Turkey, they're kind of pretty much exposed to the Western world. They have certain standards which are way higher than India, whatever. They have a lot of Western influence. And what to speak of further going to the West. Actually, it said the further you go to the West, the more materialistic society is. So it's just very, very challenging for the mind to retain any spiritual inclination. It's very difficult. And this is what happens also with devotees, those who are sincerely trying to practice Krishna consciousness. They tend to also become pretty much influenced by this mentality, by this force of the material nature. And this is what I've been exposed in the last 2 months. I'm just dealing with devotees who struggle with their spiritual lives. And it's a great reminder. It's a great reminder how we should be really, first of all, grateful to have opportunity to still be in India, because again, I'm saying how many Indians, I've been pretty much, this flight coming to India was mostly filled with people from India. And so many of them take non-veg, so many of them drink alcohol, so many of them, watch all kinds of nonsense things. So many of them speak nonsense, so many of them have nothing to do with spiritual life. So India, it's not unfortunate. It's also pretty much becoming, or placed in that unfortunate circumstance and condition of godlessness. So it's very rare to find somebody who is interested in spiritual life, even in India. But still in India, somehow still, there's some kind of favorable atmosphere for spiritual life. Because if there is no spiritual life, then what is the life? What kind of life then, we lead? If there is no spiritual life, then what kind of life that is? What is it explained in the scriptures? Yeah.
Animalistic life.
Yeah, it's animalistic life. Just interested in gross material enjoyments. Here it has been said, somebody who doesn't have a sense of transcendental happiness, but it's just experiences, material experience. And this is what it's pretty much strong in the Western world. You really have to be fixed in Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, you also become subjected and covered by this force of material energy. And it's very strong. It's very strong. Well, I'll describe certain cases which, I've been dealing with, and because of which it's a very weak Krishna consciousness that is going on in the West. There is something going on by Krishna's mercy, somewhere or other, or Prabhupada's mercy, but it's very weak. It's very weak in comparison to what it's going on here in India. And there is no reason to kind of somehow criticize that state, because it's naturally imposed by the agency of the Kali, since it is a Western world, and since certain living beings who have certain material desires have to fulfill them, and there is some environment, time, place, circumstances that it's provided for them. That is there. But still, of course, Krishna consciousness is not limited to time, place, or circumstances. It's universal, it's everywhere. And definitely there are people who have spiritual inclinations. And then also we see the other way around here in India. Actually, even more and more so, people do have very strong material inclinations. Yeah. Developing material desires, developing so many resources, or hankering after so many resources to fulfill those material desires. So that's another thing that you see worldwide, that there is some kind of very strong force to create, I'll use very strong word first, to first of all obliterate any cultural differences, any religious differences, any social differences, but that's illusion. It's not really like as it looks like. Because there's going to be an enormous social difference between super rich and super poor. That's what's never going to be, and that's the whole purpose why all of this is being done. But in the meantime, all different cultures are disappearing. Yeah, they're disappearing more and more. You won't have any more, like here in India again. It's kind of, the whole world has become a melting pot of materialism, and everybody's just interested in gross sense gratification. That's all. Through which the mind, again coming back to the topic, mind becomes absolutely dulled by sex life, by meat eating, by gambling, yeah, by intoxication. And this is what is promoted more and more. You go to any airport, what is it? Just see the, all kinds of whiskey, all kind of brandies, all kind of wine, all kind of vodka, this, that, and all kinds of that. You have like shops and shops and shops of all this rubbish. And so many other things promoting the same or similar in category of those four that we are trying to avoid, because they dull the mind. And of course, then you have mobile and all kinds of internet, all kinds of applications and things that distract you from anything sensible and in relationship to spiritual life. And so, and the whole world, everybody, so that the mind is becoming influenced in such a way that pretty much everybody just thinks about this. And benefits definitely only one very, very, very extremely small portion of the society who controls all of that and profits from that. That's it. And that's why we can see now, I can tell you just through one place in my country, for example, daily, there are 80, and that's just one country, that's just my country, anyway, whichever this is, whether you know or you don't, doesn't matter. I'll tell you later on. Just one place, 80, let's say 80 Muslims come from Africa or somewhere, even from Pakistan or somewhere, whatever it is, and they enter the Europe. That's daily, that's one place. What to speak of so many other places. So many people migrate. I don't know how they, and locally that's, that's allowed. You just pass through, you don't need visa, and I don't know, it's just the whole world is mixing like this without any practically restrictions or anything like that. And that's all created, there's all agenda behind all of this, why this is going on and how is it going on. Because the basis, again, there shouldn't be any religious differences. There shouldn't be any, who cares whether there is religion or there is no religion. It sounds, in one sense, it may sound, oh, what's wrong with it? It sounds good. or it doesn't matter which culture it is, but everything should become just one culture. Coca-Cola, what else is promoted? GMO food, and I don't know what else. What we can, so much, whatever is propagated through it, that's the culture. That's the culture, and everything else is just even criticized, even heavily discouraged, even blasphemed. So many things. That's the worldly trend. That's the worldly trend nowadays. So apparently, there's not going to be any culture pretty soon. At least that's where it's heading toward. But there's going to be a culture of consumerism and very deep, dark materialism. That's what's desired. That's where everything goes towards. And then what is the solution? We know. We know what is the solution. Hopefully we have been presented with a solution. But what is the solution for those people who fall as prey to such kind of propaganda? Well, it's a very dark condition. That's a very dark condition because we see how many divorces happen, how many frustrations happen, how many suicides happen, how many terrible dealings in relationships happen, so many other things. How many frustrations, I've been there, my mother was watching news and all these things. Every day, there's, like in France, for example, there were heavy riots, there were heavy protests, every country there is something, people are just freaking out because of so many different kind of government decisions. You don't hear, but I doubt you hear any of this in India. I doubt. Maybe something happened in US, some shooting happened in school, this and that. But you don't hear from Europe. Every country, every day, there are so many different kinds of issues. So many. Why? Because, that's what it is. That's what material life brings. And unfortunately, this kind of material life then influences devotees. It's inevitable. It's inevitable because devotees are also part of the society and they're not an active part of spiritual society, meaning Krishna consciousness. And this is what I've been unfortunate. Like I didn't give much. I gave maybe 3-4 classes there. In one sense, I wasn't really interested because very weird mood and just anyway. But I gave some classes. But there's nothing much you can do. Those classes are mostly taken as an entertainment or whatever it is. It's not taken so seriously, and you can't do much unless you spend some time in some place trying to cultivate certain consciousness. And unfortunately, what the problem there with the devotees is, like a problem pretty much everywhere, and that's a problem here as well. Very soon you get married, get entangled, and that means very soon you have to really struggle to maintain your facilities for such kind of situation. And what devotees are mostly preoccupied with, it's just earning money. And that's something that is so frustrating because then you can't count on any of those devotees. They're heavily exhausted, trying to, let's put it this way, maintain the family. And then what can they do for Krishna? Not much. And if you can't do much for Krishna, then what is your spiritual life? What is your sadhana? That means, what is the time you can raise? Get up early in the morning, chant your rounds, try to be Krishna conscious, hear something spiritual. It's very difficult. Very difficult. And devotees have, everybody has their own opinion. There is no single line authority on anything. And they don't get together. Everybody thinks things should be like this, things should be like that. And then it's so difficult to organize. And even somebody who is enthusiastic to organize something, then he gets also discouraged seeing what the situation is. So many challenges. And this is all why? Why? Because what is the center of our life? The center of our life, it's not the temple. The center of our life, it's home. In essence, there shouldn't be any problem and difficulty with this, but unfortunately we find there is. Why? Because devotees have no training And whenever faced, as I said, with such challenges which are affecting the mind, coming back to mind, and mind's desires, mind's emotions, mind's hankerings, then it's very difficult to practice spiritual life. Very difficult to organize something, very difficult to perform any devotional service, very difficult therefore to get a taste for it. It's a big challenge. And therefore devotees are not so active, and therefore in spite of, there's a pretty good field and environment and opportunities for even practicing and presenting spiritual life, but it's not happening. It's not happening because you have to earn money. And you may think in the West, oh, that's not a problem. It is a problem. It is a problem. Everybody's caught in that. Everybody's caught in that because expenses that you have here in India are incredibly minimal. Whatever you're paying here for something that same, you would have to pay in the West. I don't know how many times more than that. So even though you earn, let's say, more in the West to some extent, your expenses are also incredible. Expenses are also incredible. So that's something devotees very much struggle with. And that's why, where is the time for spiritual life? Yeah. So when one gets entangled, and then that's another thing. And I spent time with two devotees, for example. We went for some camp. And then both of them were out of Krishna consciousness for about 10 years. Why? Because they got involved with some girls. And one of them got married. And immediately, as soon as he got a child, immediately there was a double divorce because he realized this girl is crazy. Then only did he realize. And then she pressed him. Now he's in big trouble. He has to keep on paying for that adventure, very heavily. And then she doesn't allow him to see the child, and he's attached to the child now. And it's just hellish. Life is so hellish. And because of that, he didn't really practice Krishna consciousness. And then he found another lady who has 2 children from previous marriage. And then he was with her for some time. And now, finally, he's not with her anymore because she's also whatever. Things didn't work. And now he's thinking maybe some other one will. That's the mentality. It's such an unfortunate mentality. Maybe now he was kind of contemplating. Maybe I've learned some lessons. Maybe I should focus a little more on spiritual life now. Coming back kind of thing. So pretty much this is what is going on. Who and the topics are who is with whom and who can be with whom. Well, where is Krishna in all that? How can we be happy in spiritual life? How can we have any spiritual life? You're just thinking who's going to be with whom. And I noticed, and I was a little bit disgusted with little mood or particular atmosphere in that there was one camp going on for 1 week. There were several sannyasis giving programs, but also mostly they were grihastas there. Those who were brahmacharis, they didn't come for that camp. And obviously, I guess what the reason was, because that was the first time I was on that camp. Mostly what was it? Everybody was checking on each other, It's completely material. It has nothing to do with spiritual life. And then what does that mean? Why did I start discussing this in the beginning? That means strong material foundation that's required if you want to live a family life. It means a lot of effort and time invested in earning money. So what is spiritual about it? What is spiritual about it? So anyway, I'm just sharing a little bit. I don't know how much. I hope to some extent you can relate to this, because that's also what is going on here in India. Maybe not so obviously, but it is. Because we also have experienced those who get involved in family life, they're not active as much in spiritual life. And I think we do have to emphasize, as Srimad Bhagavatam does, it's a deep, dark well. That's the analogy that is given. What means deep, dark well? Deep, dark well means, is it nice to end up in a deep, dark well where you can't get out of it? Is that nice? Do you think it's very pleasant in a dark space and a deep space, which is humid and filled with all kinds of bugs and things that bite you down there and you can't get out of it? And dark has a very strong, significant meaning. How is it in the dark? It's hellish. It's very much hellish. But then we are not serious about spiritual life. And then you get all kinds of crazy misconceptions. I'll just tell you one, which might sound funny, but it's actually it's not funny. It's so pitiable. There's one devotee. It's a very nice devotee, though, in one sense, but he will never eat anything except it's cooked by his mother. Come for programs and this and that, but no, it's not going to be anything that is not cooked by his mother. I mean, hey, Haribo. If you want to talk about some certain extremes, And then another one says, oh, why should I come to some programs? Oh, maybe if I like, I will come. Maybe if I don't like. We understand in spiritual life, there are different levels. That level of desire, I like, I don't like. This is this mental level. Flickering, from whenever mind wanders due to its flickering and unsteady nature, one must certainly withdraw it and bring it back under the control of the self. But you can't do that unless you come to the higher level, which is that level of duty. We have to know what is the duty. This is what Krishna is urging Arjuna. Your duty is to fight. That's your Arjuna's duty, might not be ours. We have to find out what our duty is. We have to come to a certain level of duty. And this is not easy. This is not easy, that's clear, that's understandable. But we have to come to levels of duty. Whether we like it or not, we have to learn how to come to that level. Because otherwise we'll fail. Whenever our mind, like in the beginning we started discussing, whenever our mind challenges us and start distracting us with certain I like, I don't like, can we bring it back? This is what it said here, bring it back under the control. Can we control the mind then at that situation when you're challenged in position of a Jamil? Can you bring your mind back when you're challenged that you have certain other responsibility to do and then still perform devotion like? Can you bring your mind back when you have emotional challenges also? Can you bring your mind back at that point? That's what means spiritually strong. If one can do that. And that's what everybody's supposed to come to the level. If you don't do that in this lifetime, it's not that you can skip it. There are no shortcuts in spiritual life. You have to learn to do that better sooner than later. Because more later, you'll have to go through hellish experiences, hellish sufferings. You think that devotee had a nice time, going through all these divorces and hellish things, which so many others do in the West? Changing partners and this. So you think that's a lot of fun? That's where hellish life starts. Especially when you develop attachments, and especially if you develop, there are some byproducts of such kind of dealings, and then you have to keep on paying for that. There was another devotee in another place. I know him for so many years. He was even here in India. And his wife, he got married in Bali, Indonesia. And then his wife doesn't want to go there anymore. But there in the West, he doesn't have facilities. He's struggling to find a job. He's now taking social, which Prabhupada was very much against, social help. But he can't manage otherwise. They're renting the place. He doesn't have his own, doesn't have a good relationship with parents because they don't support devotional life and so forth and so many other things. There's always some problem. There's always something. That's the material world. You can't dream that everything will be nice, everything will be suitable, everything will be wonderful, and then I will be happy. That means you're mad. That's madness. Krishna says, Dukhalayama Shashvatam. There's nothing that can be nice and great in this world. And if you think everything will be nice and great in this world, then you're mad. That's all. It's very, very simple. It's very simple. And he's struggling, and he said, I have no time. I can't do so much. Sometimes he can manage to come to temple. And everybody's pretty much crying like this, that they have lost opportunity to serve Krishna. Becoming entangled in material affairs. How? By getting entangled in affairs of marriage or married life. And then so many fights occurred, so many, disagreements, so many hellish things. And you have to live with that person, which you never knew initially who it was, except what you saw. You didn't see anything beyond the body. And then so many problems. There's pretty much stories are all the same. And that's why it's so difficult to practice Krishna consciousness. And that's all that I've been pretty much facing there. How devotees struggle. Why? Just because of that. There's no strong ashram, there's no strong training, and then later on, whenever there is such kind of entanglement, they don't know how to get out of it, or they don't know how to handle it. It's a big problem. It's an enormous problem that society is going through. So that's why, if nothing else, one of the things that I want to emphasize today, that I said I'm sharing from whatever last 2 months have been going through, what is very healthy in spiritual life is to keep on traveling. It's to keep on moving as much as possible. Don't stay at home. Don't stay at home so much. If you have any excuse, any reason, whatever it is, just move out of the home a little bit. Get some fresh air, some fresh consciousness, fresh experience, and then your perception and understanding of so many other things will be completely different. Completely different. And I feel also now, I didn't move so much. I did, as I'm talking about last 2 months, I've been at home. I was forced in some ways to be at home trying to settle some things. Because my father passed away, and so I had to go. And it wasn't so, it wasn't difficult. It's not that, but it was somewhat challenging. I could feel that challenge. At least I can say I felt the challenge. I felt the challenge. I didn't care about the challenge, but I felt it. And just being at home, it weakens also. Like, of course, anyway, let me just emphasize first. One should try to make arrangements to move away from the, settling at any particular place. Don't just settle down and think this is where the whole universe revolves around. Don't ever start thinking like this. Move as much as possible. Travel, move around, see, gain experience. As much as possible, especially for brahmacharis, whoever aspires to any extent. It's suicide to remain in one place. One becomes lazy, crazy, covered with the modes of material nature, attached. There are all kinds of side effects, negative side effects of just staying in one place. As much as possible, one should keep on that. That's why that saying is, rolling stone gathers no moss. One should never develop attachment practically for anything. It should just be happy moving around as much as possible. As much as possible. Because as soon as one stays, you become covered. You leave anything at one place. What happens? Just come after, let's say, 2 months. What happens? Suraj, how was my room when you came? Was nice? No? Really? Why close the windows? Still so much dust came? See? Even you close something, whatever, still so much mess will happen. Yeah. So leave anything, so much dust will come, so much dirt, so many cockroaches will come, so many, I don't know, whatever else will come. So many Bhutas will be there. So many things will be there. So nothing should be settled. Keep on moving. One should keep on moving. There's something a little deeper, I don't know. Well, I'll share in a few more minutes. I'll say I did go a little through some, as I said, there were challenges, but the one greater challenge I did face, I'm going to share it for sake of learning experience. Even after so many years, it's amazing. I did, have a little exchange with my mother, which was like quite emotional. It's amazing. Even though you practice spiritual life for so many years and you're somewhere, they have a very, very strong bond with everyone, of course, means their children and so. So that was a little, I don't know, it's like, I was just contemplating how is that. Maybe, it said when you practice spiritual life, your heart becomes softer. Yeah. So I was thinking maybe that's also that my response was too soft in some ways. Because I've been considering, she didn't want me, of course. There's no time when she wants me to go back to India, so to say. That's always there. So that's something one has to learn how to deal with. It's not easy. It's a challenge. It's a challenge because I know whatever sacrifice she did, and how much she helped, and so many things. So that's natural part of gratitude. That's natural part of any human relationship. That is there. And so I was thinking, what's going on? Why am I so affected? In some ways, by because it would have been better. I was thinking, in some ways, maybe I shouldn't have said anything. I just kind of gone, disappeared, and then informed that kind of I'm leaving. So that could be an option. But anyway. Or another option could be, somebody can be really just in Maya, this becoming affected by certain familial dealings. And I said it does have effect. The longer you stay somewhere, the more difficult it's going to become. That's also there. So one should not, remain, as I said, too long in one place. It does have an effect. It does have an effect. First of all, one weakens in his potency practice. And another thing is one just, obviously because of that, just becomes very susceptible to other influences. And therefore one loses the real goal and purpose of spiritual life. So that can tend to become very, very dangerous. We know that Arjuna was in similar position. Arjuna was challenged to fight against somebody who was very dear to him. That means all the teachers, all the seniors, so many relatives. And everybody was so dear to Arjuna, and now he had to not just fight, he had to kill them, fight with them till death. That's not an easy thing. That's not an easy thing. So now that's an emotional challenge. It's a very serious emotional challenge. But what should one do? That's one of the tests. You see, first of all, in spiritual life, there are certain kind of tests and levels that one goes through. And they're pretty much gross. Like we said, dealing with 4 regulative principles or something. Later on, they become more and more subtle, more and more refined, more and more undetected, so to say. So then what is to be done? So what is to be done, it's what Krishna said to Arjuna, one still has to perform the duty. That is to be done. So whether at a certain moment or not, we like something or we don't, we still have to perform our duty. That's the level one has to come through. If we don't come to that level, then we fail. And we fail, and there is no justification. What about my family? I have a loan and I have to do so many things and financial situation. How can I surrender to Krishna? Well, you have to surrender to Krishna. If you don't surrender in this life, well, then there's the next one, and then another one, and so many billions of other ones. And when do you think that the circumstance is going to be better? No, it's just going to get worse. Then when will you surrender? Next Kali Yuga? You're going to wait for next Kali Yuga and another Kali Yuga? And maybe another day of Brahma? That's what one has to learn. One has to learn how to perform duties which are beneficial for everyone. That's what one has to understand. Even though I know I might not like it and might be difficult for whatever reason, I still have to know what is the right thing to do at the right time. I have to learn that. If I don't learn this, then I'm a failure. And I'm going to suffer. Everybody else is going to suffer. And Krishna is going to suffer saying, look at this fool. He's not following. Why am I giving all these instructions in Bhagavad Gita? It's for everyone's benefit. It's not that always for everyone's benefit, things are just going to be smooth and easy and nice and wonderful. It's not going to. There is no nice way to say goodbye to Maya. There is no. You can't say nicely, my dear Maya, Haribol, goodbye. Relax now. I'm just going to nicely serve Krishna. That's not going to work. It doesn't work like this. Forget about this. Forget it. Oh, we'll work it out. I'll try to explain. It should be like, no. I'll try to give you some philosophy, understanding. Please try to, understand also, It's not going to work. It doesn't work. There's no nice way to say goodbye to Maya. Either you want Maya or you want Krishna. This has to be cut. That's it. That's it. So I played a little trick with my mother what to do. I had to do this. So I decided to go one night before. Then finally she pressed me, when am I going? So I said I'm going next day morning directly. But instead I decided to stay at one devotee's place the night before. So then I was packing all that day, and then last 15 minutes I said, I changed the plan, some because of this, something I have to go now. Yeah. So she had just 15 minutes for emotional whatever. That's all. So that was much easier than rather staying and then the whole night and then next day morning and and all these things. So I just worked things out in a much faster manner. And now I spoke to her and everything is same as before. See? No problem. She's with whatever, everything's fine. Yeah. But that moment, that's going to be, the moment where you're supposed to kind of really start practicing and going for Krishna consciousness. That's going to be a challenge. That's going to be a challenge. And it's amazing. I'm just saying, this is every time pretty much almost the same story. Every time. We have to learn how to deal with it. Unless you learn how to deal with it, as I said, you will fail. You will fail. You will never advance in spiritual life. You have to learn how to come to level of duty, what has to be done, whether at the moment you like it or not. That's a very serious lesson. It's a very serious lesson we have to learn. Because then otherwise we are then on this level of the mind, where mind will control you, not that you will control your mind. It's going to be the other way around. Then you're going to be Godasa, not the Goswami. So one has to learn how to come to this level of duty. And then last, and I think pretty much one of the most important, Sajan, Haribol, get in. Get in, tell him to come in. Listen, sit down. One of the most important points that I want to raise today, listen to this one. Whenever we have any difficulties that we struggle with, it's very important. And I see most of the devotees fall at this point. Most of the devotees pretty much lose their spiritual life on this point. Whenever we have difficulties or something, even if we don't like, we should ask for the guidance, what to do in such situation. That's one thing. We should have faith on someone who, whatever instructing us, that we take this to the heart and implement this and act upon this very, very seriously. This is one of the most important lessons in spiritual life. If you don't learn and implement this, there's no question of progressing. So even if I don't like whatever the instruction is, if I just follow, that means I'm following Krishna, and Krishna is going to help me. And in the course of time, I'm going to get out of all the troubles. Even though maybe at a certain time, certain place, certain position, whatever it is, I might be going through heavy purifications, but if I follow on the instruction that is given, ultimately I'm going to be relieved from it. But if I keep staying on the mental level, here it is, that's what we're talking here. I'm staying on the mental level. I don't like something. I don't like being in a certain place. I don't like doing certain things. I'm freaking out for whatever reason and whatever is going on. But if I just follow instructions, everything will fall into place. That's my personal realization. That's why I'm still here. I didn't like certain things, and many things I didn't like, whatever it is, but I followed instructions. I'm still here. I'm still practicing Krishna consciousness. I'm still happy in Krishna consciousness. I'm even more happy seeing, how other people, where they failed and how they're struggling and suffering. And how I've been personally saved from all of this nonsense because I just followed even something that I didn't like, but I follow authorities that, I accepted as authorities. So even if I don't like something in spiritual life, I should be very staunch in accepting one principle, and that is even if whatever it is, I'm just going to follow instructions of somebody, whom I have some trust and whom I'm taking some guidance from. Because most of the devotees who are not here, who were here around, even though they've received so many good instructions and everything, they didn't act upon it. They're not here anymore. A very, very strong lesson. It's a very strong lesson. But it's a very important lesson. And this is what I said. This is mostly what is going on in the West also. There's no such guidance, and that's what's unfortunate. And that's why everybody's struggling, and that's why nobody accepts any guidance, and that's why the whole struggle about spiritual life is going on. Yeah. And then you struggle also, as I said, outside, earning, changing so many different kinds of relationships and just having really very difficult time, both materially and spiritually, even more spiritually. So that's why here, that's what Prabhupada has been saying, that's what the nature of the mind is. It's flickering, unsteady, because it can never be happy with material energy, being placed in material energy. If you want mind to be peaceful and happy, you have to give him devotional service. Then only mind will be happy and peaceful, not otherwise. Not so many material. When is enough? How much money is enough? How many women is enough? How much anything material can satisfy the mind? It's madness. It's madness. So that's why one who learns how to engage the senses in the service of the master of the senses, which is Krishna, then one can be Goswami. One can bring those senses under full control. This is called Krishna consciousness. So all of you have an incredible opportunity. What you have here, all the facilities, all the association, it's so rare in the West. So rare in the West. So please take it seriously, take advantage, don't be in mind. Don't dream about something that doesn't exist. It exists only on the screen, that's all. If that's what satisfies you, I don't think so. But anyway, good luck. So please take some of those instructions that we discussed today very, very serious, especially the one, even if I don't like, I have faith and trust. If I receive some instruction from somebody who's trying to help me in spiritual life, then I'm just going to follow this. That's the most important one. I like it or I don't like it. That's going to save you in your spiritual practice. Okay, time is up. Any comments or questions on this verse? Krishna, where are you hiding? Okay, so arrange for next time those commentaries, whatever. I wanted to share a little bit some of these realizations that they were pretty strong realizations. They're very deep, of course. Pretty, it's different flavor, but it's pretty similar every time, But it's, as I said, it's a very good learning experience. It's just good learning experience. And as I said, another lesson is keep on moving, keep on traveling, don't get stuck. Then you will see a little bit, you will see reality. You won't just be living in a dream, as I said, the world of the screens, world of internet. You will see what is the reality. Reality is not nice at all, especially if it's not Krishna conscious. So keep on moving, keep on learning how to accept good advice and implement that good advice. That's our only hope. That's our only hope. Material world is not a nice place. It's very nice to be bewildered, but what's going on behind the scene, most of all. That's material nature, very vicious, very vicious. You can't say then, oh, I didn't know. You'll have to pay a price for every little exploitment that you're planning to do in relationship to material energy. And more so. I have to pay the heavy price. So better to learn and not get trapped in it. Whatever it might be. Yes?
So probably like modern day scenario is like literally it is very difficult to practice spirituality. So like if someone is whatever advancement he is in whatever level, so whenever any situation is coming, he is going to get affected by that. Is there any way by which he can literally get like
Well, the affection is going to be on the level of one's consciousness. So whatever one's consciousness is, to that extent, one's going to be affected. So that's why we have to be also serious on a daily basis. How do we practice spiritual life? And keep that consciousness, because it's not that you can keep consciousness. Okay, now I'm here and forever I'm going to stay here. No, you can go up, you can go down. Because material energy is also influencing us. So to which extent material energy is influencing you, to which extent you're influencing your consciousness by Krishna consciousness. There's no steady level. That depends on our daily, right now, moment of awareness. So that's why we have to work on that always. What are we going to make input as? When I was looking, like I said, this is a Jamil case, they were just sitting in front of me. What am I supposed to do? But a little bit further away. And they're hugging and doing all the nonsense and over and over and over. I was just thinking, yuck, sharing spit, and they call this kissing, it was so disgusting, so disgusting. And publicly all kinds of stuff, And I was thinking, what a frustration, what a frustration. Somebody will think, oh, how happy they are. If they would be happy, they would never be doing this. Think about that. What is there? What kind of happiness in sharing the spit? So horrible. So then what is the consciousness? So it depends on consciousness. How are we going to react to such things? Anyway, I won't speak about other things, but that we'll discuss on Saturday. I didn't come for Saturday class. 5 o'clock, same place. So it depends what is level of consciousness. And if you don't have proper level of consciousness, then you might be affected by such nonsense going on and start thinking, all kinds of, who knows what you want to start thinking. Maybe I should get one also or something. It's crazy. So we have to maintain Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness means simple, one thing, higher taste. Something so much better that when you see something like this, then you spit in disgust. Because that's all what it is. Yeah. Anyway. So that was really stupid. And at one moment I saw that girl, she was looking at me. So stupid. Poor fellow. I mean, she's also poor because she's stupid. Both are just unfortunately. What do you do? Anyway, I was hearing some lectures. I was just praying for them. Okay, I think we have to stop. Anything else we'll discuss some other days. So keep your mind fixed, focus on Krishna consciousness, do something in your spiritual life. Don't get trapped in case of material illusion. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.